Hey everyone, it's me. This is the first video in our brand new series called Simply the Bible, where we are going to walk through each book of the Old Testament in just 5 minutes. So if you want to understand the Bible more and remember what you learn, then join us every week for a new episode. You can also subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And let's dive right into the book of Genesis. Now, Adam and Eve had lived in the garden for many years and they were getting up there in age. They had 2 sons, whose names were Cain and Abel. Cain was their firstborn, and he was followed shortly by his brother Abel. Now, Cain became a farmer and he tended fields and gardens, while Abel was a shepherd who took care of the flocks of sheep and goats and cattle. One day, both brothers decided to bring some of their work to God as an offering. So Cain went over to his field and carefully selected the best of his crops, and he brought them to God. Abel did the same thing. He selected the best of his flock and brought it to God. Then they stood before God, and he looked at what they had brought. In Abel's offering it pleased him, but Cain's offering it did not. You see, because Abel, when he brought his offering, he brought the best of his flock, a blood sacrifice, while Cain, he brought just some vegetables. Now, this doesn't mean that God didn't like vegetables, or that Abel's sacrifice was better because he was a shepherd and Cain was a farmer. No, it was because of something else. See, sacrifice was not just a way to give God something nice. It was a way to remind themselves of their dependence on God and to remind themselves of the covenant that God made with Adam after the fall. God said that one day he would send a redeemer and crush the serpent's head, the one who brought death and destruction into the world. But until that day, sacrifices were a picture of that future Messiah, the blood of animals. It pointed forward to his blood, which one day would be shed for the sins of the world. So Abel understood this, and that's why he brought a blood sacrifice. But Cain, he didn't get it. He thought that all he had to do was bring God something nice and everything would be fine. But God didn't accept his sacrifice. So then Cain became very angry and he was very upset. In fact, the word there says that his face fell. Now, I know people say that all the time. Like, oh, my face is falling. But literally here, his face had actually fell down. The Hebrew word there for face is the same word they used for lifeless, like when someone dies and their face falls down on the table. So then, when God said to Cain, "Why are you so upset? Why is your face fallen?" Cain replied, "You don't know how much better off I am than Abel. I am a farmer, while he is a shepherd. He gets to stay in the fields all day, but I have to stay home and take care of the fields and gardens." But deep down inside, he was really angry that God accepted his brother's sacrifice and rejected his own. So then, jealousy began to fill his heart. Now, I think sometimes we can relate to this, right? Sometimes we can get jealous of other people, whether it's because they're smarter or prettier or more talented. And sometimes we can even get jealous of other people's faith. We'll see this in the next couple chapters when Joseph's brothers got jealous of his faith in God. Or sometimes we can get jealous of other people's relationship with God. And that's what happened to Cain. So then God confronted him and he said, "You must not be jealous or angry, for such wickedness will not stand in God's presence." So God was warning Cain, don't let that jealousy turn into sin, because if you let it grow, then I will deal with you very harshly. But unfortunately, Cain wouldn't listen to God's warning. So then when Abel went out into the field to take care of his flocks, Cain went out to meet him, and he invited his brother to go check out his fields. Now maybe Cain thought he could just ask Abel to help him plant some crops and then everything would be okay. But it wasn't too long until jealousy filled his heart again, and he grew even more angry. So then Cain attacked his brother Abel and he killed him. That was the first murder in the Bible. Then the Bible says that afterwards Cain was very afraid. But God asked him, "Where is your brother Abel?" And Cain lied to God and he said, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" That's one of the most famous lines in the Bible, but it's often misunderstood. People think that Cain was saying, "I'm not responsible for what happened to him." But look at the original language, because the word keeper actually means guardian. So Cain was saying, "Am I the guardian of my brother? Like, is it my job to take care of him?" It's almost like when parents ask their kids, "Who's in charge when I'm gone?" And the kids are like, "No one. We're just going to watch TV." So Cain was saying that he's not in charge. Abel's life is not his responsibility. But of course he was wrong because he was Abel's brother and God made them guardians over creation. So they were responsible for taking care of the earth and each other. So then God confronted Cain again, and he cursed him and said, "You are now cursed and banished from the garden. You will wander the earth as a restless wanderer." So Cain left the garden and he wandered all over the earth. But God didn't just leave him alone. God marked him with the sign of a special sign, an invisible mark. God set it upon him and said, "Whoever kills Cain, it will be as if they kill a human being, as if they kill one of my servants, a watchman." So that invisible mark, it protected Cain from being killed. Now, some people think this is talking about a literal mark on his body, like a tattoo or something. But the Hebrew word there for mark, it's actually the same word used for sign or token. So this wasn't a mark on his body, but rather a sign that read, "Do not kill." So God placed that sign around Cain and it protected him, but it also protected everyone else. Because if anyone saw that sign, they knew that they couldn't kill him because it was God who marked him. So that's what happened to Cain. Now, as far as Adam and Eve, they heard what God said about Cain, and I'm sure they grieved for their son Abel. But the Bible doesn't say anything about that. In fact, the last thing it says is that Adam and Eve had another son named Seth, and then it says that they lived after that for many years. And I'm sure that those years were filled with pain, grief, and sorrow. But despite that, they continued to live and have children and grandchildren, and they trusted that God would raise up a redeemer to crush the serpent's head. That's why in the next chapter, Adam and Eve's descendants, they start having kids, and we will meet some of them. We'll meet Enoch, who walked with God and then he disappeared. And we'll meet Noah, who built an ark and saved his family and all the animals. And we'll meet Abraham, who God called out of Ur of the Chaldees and started a nation with him, Promised Land. And we'll get to see all that happen in our next episodes. So make sure you join us next week for our next episode of Simply the Bible, where we will continue on in Genesis, chapter 5 and 6. But before you go, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Simply the Bible. And if you did, make sure you click that thumbs up button. Make sure you click that thumbs up button. Make sure you share this with your friends and family and your small group so that they can learn the Bible in just 5 minutes, just like you.